Extreme neglect in childhood, where adults literally don't care for you appropriately, can lead to a kind of emotional leakiness, where you've created a good life and you set goals as an adult. But like a lot of people with complex PTSD, you may feel disconnected from other people, no matter how connected they actually are to you. And that memory of not being cared for can creep into every situation. You feel it with people you date, with friends, you feel it at work or school. And if it's not healed, the irony is that it will cause you to get into and stay in relationships where, in fact, you're not cared for. And you can change this. You can. My letter today is from a young man I'll call James, and he writes, "Dear Fairy, I'm stuck in a conundrum with my close friendships and don't know whether I can salvage these relationships or if it's better to sever them." All right, I've got the fairy pencil. I'm going to circle things I want to come back to, but let's go through and see what James's story is. I was always a shy guy, and I think it stemmed from the fact that when I was younger, I was left alone a lot. When I was born, my father worked on the other side of the country and came home once every 15 days, if we were lucky. Ooh, that's hard. My mother also worked as cook in a diner, so she was always out in the morning and night with just a small break in the afternoon. That's hard. So I was mostly looked after by my maternal grandparents, and even that was not ideal, as my grandfather was a construction worker, so he was out working all day, and at night he showed his worst side as an alcoholic. The only one in the house who gave some attention was my grandmother, who also worked as a dressmaker and often liked to decompress watching TV after work, so she was either sewing or watching something, preferring not to be disturbed. All right, so you were neglected. That went on until I was 5 and my younger brother was born. We moved out of our grandparents' home and into our own. My mother took a break from her job, so I thought I could finally get some more attention, but I was wrong. I was in fact even less relevant than before, as now my whinings were a bother to her. I grew resentful and distant from my family. Even more when the year after my other brother was born, I was just expected to help and follow orders. I endured hell through my teenage years and had a breakdown during my first year of university. Okay, there. That is not uncommon. Kids who hold it together a long time have a breakdown in college. After I took some time off, I am now close to graduation. It wasn't easy to have to work to sustain my expenses, and now the last push feels unbearable. I feel like Sisyphus working more desperately every day, hoping that finally the next big thing will make the boulder roll on the other side of the hill and finally make things easier. Obviously, that also took a toll on my very few friendships. Lots of my friends are as broken as I was at the start of my journey, and now that I've progressed, even if just a little, it bothers me how most of them pain themselves in saying that there's no solution to their problems or that it's impossible to get better, but they don't even try anything. I suggested stuff to try, and nobody even bothered. Oh, to heal? Oh yeah, I'll tell you why that is. Okay. I feel like they are bad influences that could keep me stuck in a bad mindset, but I also don't want to lose them. First and foremost, because I care for each one of them. We share experiences and lots of times together, and although they clearly don't show me the care I show them, nobody checks in on me. I ask them how they are on a weekly basis, for example. I feel like somehow they care for me in their own way. I don't know if that is enough of a clue to let them go, but another thing that really holds me back a lot is that they're also friends with a lot of my other friends, so if I leave them behind, it may affect the rest of the friend circle I have around that. Leaving them would leave me with little to no other friends, all of them much more distant than the closer ones I have in this group. I just don't know what to do. I feel trapped either way. In the past, when I felt like this, I stayed alone. I dealt with the problems and emotions by myself, and then returned to my friends. But I feel like that is not a healthy way to resolve things. I fear loneliness and I don't want to be alone, as I know that it can be damaging, if not worse. Deep down, I just don't feel cared for. There it is. There's the core feeling. I just don't feel cared for. So being with them and feeling ignored is suffering, and being alone is suffering. I just can't escape it in the short term. But what can I do in the long term? I'm so scared of the idea of being forced to make new friends, as people will probably feel the neediness and intent and stray away from me even more. I also feel like I'm somehow responsible for the situation, even though logically I know I did all I could to better these relationships, try to find new friends and all. So it just isn't my fault. I feel once again like the child nobody ever wanted. Yeah, there it is. Abandonment. Wounds of abandonment and neglect. That's what it looks like. So thank you for this, and I'm grateful for what you taught me. I hope you can reach out to me again. Yep, I can. All right, James, let's talk about what's happening here. So what I love about this is when two of us have had a common experience, the one who's not having it right now, or at least not having your experience right now, can have some perspective and share it. And that's why you're so brilliant for reaching out about this. I utterly recognize your feelings as ones I've had before. And I mean, I hate it when people go, when I was your age, but I think there is something age-related about this, just in that the breakdown comes in college, like you're finally away, you're at this really new stage, it's kind of unsteady, but you're also on your feet again. It seems like a lot of people write to me during or after that kind of breakdown. And it precipitates a crisis, because there you are. I think it feels like when you finally get out of the house, it feels like, okay, everything's going to be different now. I'm finally away from these people who have been making my life so hard. And then we start to make contact with the part of us that's wounded, that's with us, no matter if the parents are in the picture or not. You know, they're no longer hurting you actively every day. You're just having a wound every day. And so the good news about it is what is going on inside you is a lot easier for you to recognize and change than what they did. Like if you were trying to get them to behave differently, I'd be like, oh, give up, buddy. You know, it's really hard to get anybody to change like that. And it's really hard to address things in the past unless, I mean, every once in a while, somebody will show up in your life and say, I want to talk about what I did in the past. And I know I hurt you and I'm really sorry. I want to talk about that. But it does not happen very often. And happily, we can heal anyway. Like that's a nice thing that can restore a relationship to something deeper than it was, or bring it back from, you know, non-existence, or not, or it can just give you some information that you didn't have. It can give you information you didn't want, but you can heal whether that happens or not. You can heal the part in you that is wounded by how you were raised. And so I thought you demonstrated wonderful self-awareness here by saying that it feels unbearable trying to get through this last thing in college. I can imagine as a person who was not really supported emotionally as a kid, to have to do something that hard, and you're working your way through. And I had to do that too. And as I understand it, like nowadays, compared to when I went to college, it's much harder even than what I had to do. And it's like a grind, right? And it takes tremendous self-determination and a lot of self-denial, I think sometimes, and a lot of stress to get through it. But good for you, good for you as a traumatized and neglected person to go ahead and do this with your life. You are surviving, and I'm proud of you for doing that. And so you have these friends, and you didn't describe exactly what it was, but they just don't have a healing mindset. You think they're traumatized, and you probably are right. It sounds like they're a bit trivial about it too. So here's what I see as the difference between you and them is you have self-awareness right now that something's wrong that needs to be healed. Whether that's because you're just faster to develop that as a person, or because you have enough pain going on that you had to figure it out. And they have so far successfully compartmentalized it. Rest assured, people who haven't dealt with past trauma, the trauma will generally catch up with them. They may compartmentalize it, but over a few years, it's very common for it to sort of come crashing down late 20s, early 30s, where, the compartmentalizing isn't holding anymore. And life is demanding more realness, authenticity, clarity about things. And that compartmentalizing comes with a lot of cost of, poor perception, shallow relationships. So it sounds to me like you formed friendships when you were at one place in your life, compartmentalized, less self-aware. Now that you're more integrated and more aware, you just don't fit with these friends. You've outgrown them. So welcome to healing. People who heal, we lose some friends, and that's what happens. We outgrow some friends, and some of them we choose to keep around because we're so fond of them and we can deal with it, and others we just find too exasperating. Or probably more often the case, people who when you start healing and changing, it annoys the other people. They're just like, oh, Mr. Healy here, you're trying to heal everything and you think you're better than me, don't you? There's some of that too. You probably encountered it already. So if people are going to give you a bad time because you're making positive changes in your life, at least it helps you be clear. But if they're just sort of trivial or partying or continuing to make terrible mistakes, what I'm hearing is that it's bothering you and you would like to be able to help them get to your level or use your tools. And that's where I would say probably best to let them find their own path and just trust that they will. Sometimes people say, oh, I watched your video or I tried your daily practice techniques and they're great and I really want to get this person in my life to do it. It's a friend, a sibling, a partner, a parent, a kid. And I'll say, well, mention it. The biggest thing that you can do that would make anybody else want to change is to change in wonderful ways right in front of their eyes. I think when we are feeling so clear, like, oh, this is so trivial. I'm so bored with these people. I can't wait till I'm out of here and can meet friends who are more suitable for me. It can give us a little bit of a haughtiness or something. Of course, and it doesn't feel good to people. So you end up in these conflicts about it. But what I like here is your self-awareness is strong. You're reaching out here. You are connecting with people just by sharing your story here with tens of thousands of people who are going to see your video. You're now connected and you're here. You're going to end up, if you choose to, I don't know, people who write letters, I'm like, read the comments at your own risk because they come at night. The mean people who come in and just invent ways to put everybody down, you, me, everybody. Mostly though, you're going to get a lot of love. A lot of people are going to relate, or they'll have a little idea of how they have dealt with something. So you can check that out if you want. But I hope overall what you find out is you are not alone. You are destined to have friends who do match you. And the fact that you're healing means they're going to be more healed too. The people we met when we were less healed, that's what we do with partners and friends. We go to things we match. And then if we're getting better, it looks like what you're going through. And they fall away. And there's sometimes these troughs in our friend life where it's very lonely and it just feels like, well, that I never should have healed because now look, I have nobody to hang out with. But it's temporary. The new people come in. It comes faster and more accurately as people who fit you. The sooner you're not hanging out with the people who are truly generating conflict and strife for you. If you're just staying friends, though, because you're compassionate and you're fond of them, that's a perfectly good thing to do. That speaks well of you. So you get to decide. I'm imagining that of the people that are frustrating you right now, they're across the spectrum from very beloved, but just not keeping up with your level of healing to just real jerks who, are antagonizing you with everything that you're doing. You can decide different decisions for each friend. And it sounds like you're going to be out of this school situation soon. And that's going to be yet another transition where you'll have the opportunity to meet a round of people wherever you land after school. And that could be a very positive thing or a negative thing. And it will be positive if you can continue to process your emotions and thoughts that are self-sabotaging about like, oh, I never should have healed, or I'm being too hard on everybody, or who do I think I am, or I'm projecting. You didn't say any of these things, but I think when we lose friends, it's hard not to question, did I do something wrong? So by connecting and making friends with people, even casually, who also are healing similar situations, you can be well-friended. You can always have somewhere to go. So some things that really helped me with these transition was 12-step programs. They're wonderful. Everybody's working on themselves. Well, most people are working on themselves. Some people are, just figuring out whether they want to be there, or they're misunderstanding the point and just kind of stuck in the problem. But that's okay. It's for all kinds of people. You can find people there who are working on their own problems in a way that you relate to the problem, you admire what they're doing. Those are great people to get to know. And there's a culture in 12-step groups of be friendly to other people and give them a hand up, which is lovely. That is exactly what I needed. And I remember how grateful I felt that I was finally at the party. I always somehow sensed what must be there somewhere where everybody is fairly nice and we are sitting in a circle caring about each other. I was very lonely in my life until I found that. And then there are other things you can do too. There are other kinds of groups you can do, and some people do it through joining a martial art or a sport or a theater group or a therapy group. Or if you choose, you could come into my program. I have a membership program that I particularly love. I would, right? But we have hundreds of people and they're active. We have a secret Facebook group for members, and the members can take all the courses, and they have a book club and they have study groups. Some people, they don't participate at all. They just are in their own space taking their online courses from me. But you get a lot of freebies, and we try to make it a very, very good value. So you might want to look into membership. There's a link down below to that if you want to check it out. A big reason why people who were neglected as children struggle to form stable, lasting relationships is because of insecure attachment. Now, you might rush in and then get enmeshed with someone you just met, and then kind of freak out when it becomes clear that just because you're sleeping together, the commitment and predictability of a real relationship isn't there, or it isn't there yet. Now, if you're not clear what you want, not just in your mind, but in your words and your actions, you're unlikely to end up in a situation that makes you happy. And the shame of it is, you may be pushing away perfectly good people who like you, but they're put off by the odd behaviors that come out when you're trying to hide how you actually feel, how confused you are and scared. My letter today is from a woman I'll call Clara, and she writes, "Hi, Crappy Childhood Fairy. I'm 22, and since I was 11, I've been struggling with love and self-worth matters." Got my fairy pencil. I'm going to circle things to come back to on a second reading, but let's see what's going on with Clara. "I really hope you can read this and help me with your experience. My parents separated when I was 6, and my mom was an emotionally unavailable caretaker. My father was out of the picture, but kind of present when I was little, and I remember trying to spend time with them at night since they worked all day, but he was tired and he threatened to hit me if I didn't go to bed, and a few times he did, for that or for other things. Later on, he went on to have another family, which he's committed to. Some years later, my mom got a boyfriend, and they traveled a lot around the world. At that time, I was 10, and I felt really lonely, even though I lived with a lot of family members. Oh, golly, yeah. You got abandoned. I usually got treated like a punching bag by my grandpa, who was like my father figure. He was sweet with me when I was a little child, but then he began treating me like I was dumb and obnoxious. My aunt also, she could be quite mean and accused me of not letting my mom be happy. And since I cried when she went away and I got treated like a manipulative child, I played rough with my brother, but since he was 8 years older sometimes when he hit me, it hurt more than it was fun, so I cried. But always I got treated like the problem. And I got yelled at since I was the one with the high-pitched voice. I was the inconvenience. Aside from that, I really looked up to my brother. Oh, I can kind of see where the trouble that might be ahead for you. So then Clara writes, well, around when I was 11, I met my first partner in school, and he was 7 years older, and it was a real toxic relationship with textbook manipulation and abuse, which lasted 3 years. Clara, I'm so sorry. I think I even see that as worse than you seem to see it. And you see it as bad, but that's terrible. That's just terrible. You were 11. So 11 to 14, I guess. I'm taking some details out because on YouTube, these details would affect who can see this video because it's so brutal. So bad things happen. And Clara got into drugs and alcohol. She says, but I didn't have any friends at that time, only that guy and a lot of lies. So when I ended the relationship and told my mom, she said that I had broken her trust and that I would have to put effort to earn it back. So your mom blamed you for getting exploited as a little child while she wasn't paying attention. I'm so sorry, Clara. That's just wrong. She said that I had broken her trust and that I would have to put effort to earn it back, which hurt since I was alone and still a child, and now we have a sort of good relationship. Eventually, I embarked on other love pursuits, a lot of limerence and situationships, none that lasted more than 2 months, and none that was quite healthy until today. So 6 months ago, I started talking with a guy, and we shared interests and found that the picture he took carried a melancholic view that was quite near my feelings, along with music he shared that was the same, that helped me through my adolescence. 2 months ago. So they met 6 months ago. Then 2 months ago, they started going out. And he told me he ended an 8-year-long relationship 2 years ago, which ended badly. We spent time together as a couple. He stayed in my house and we slept together every time we met. We went to the movies, to the theater, to parks. We had picnics. We ate out. Sometimes I had to work on some papers. I'm in my 4th year of college, and he slept on my bed while I worked and things like that. Some time ago, we were going to meet, and he canceled at the last minute. I told him I understand, and then we didn't speak for a week until I asked him how he was doing, and everything carried out as always. But now I had a lot more doubts and fears. During the week, I cried a lot, not knowing what was happening, thinking maybe he didn't want to see me again, or maybe he just got bored. 2 weeks ago, we went to see a movie, and the morning after, he asked me if I was more into monogamy or polygamy. And I told him monogamy, and he kissed me and said, nice, me too. And I thought, well, that's a good sign since I want a relationship. And a few hours later, I asked him if he wanted to meet more people, and he said, no, not for now, which made me feel uncomfortable. Like he was with me while somebody else showed up. And I asked if he would tell me if he met someone else, and he said, yes, would you? So it's interesting. There's this escalation into this talk, like it's as if he said to you, no, he does want to meet other people. And you're sort of like, well, will you tell me if it happens? But he said he didn't. I don't know. You've been dating only 2 months. So that's okay. I'm going to zero in on that. And I told him, yes. So he said, he said, would you? And I told him, yes, you would tell him if you're dating somebody else. And we didn't speak more on that. And some hours later, before he went home, you were churning, right? You were like worried about it. I asked him if we could speak so I could clear my mind. And so I told him, we're kind of like a friend with benefits, right? And he responded, sort of, you could say that. And I asked, you don't want any relationships, do you? So these are very leading questions. I'm just wondering about this, Clara. They're very leading. So I'm not sure where you got that. But when you say that, maybe you gave him the impression that that's where you were coming from. But it's hard to say. I wasn't there. It's hard to write what the conversation really was, isn't it? All right. So you said, so we're kind of friends with benefits, right? And he responded, sort of. You could say that. And I asked, you don't want any relationships? And he told me that he has envisioned being in a relationship with me. After his last relationship, he had lasted with me more than with anyone else he's tried going out with. But that he has fear of commitment and he feels safe with me because I'm kind. And he told me that he couldn't force himself to feel more for me, that he couldn't give me any security of the future, and that he felt uncomfortable because he thought he wasn't the person that could help me with my feelings. I had told him that I felt that he was playing with me, which kind of hurt since I wasn't asking for help or promises, which I made clear. I just wanted to know he had the will to stay and work things out as a couple, which he couldn't say. So Carla, what I hear here, if I'm reading it correctly, is that you feel one way and you're trying to hide it and you're saying this other thing and sort of acting tough and going, so you don't want anything, right? And then you were hurt. You couldn't really, and he went, oh, okay, well, I guess it's casual. What I want to show you, Carla, is you had been dating him for 2 months. It's actually healthy for somebody not to have made a commitment to be in a relationship with you after 2 months. Now, you had decided together that you would have a sexual relationship. So that is one way that sometimes those of us with attachment wounds, or just anybody, can, we can say yes to that. We can feel like we ought to be fine with it. But then when it happens, there's this attachment there, and it feels terrible that the person is not committed to us. And this is why in my dating course and in my program, I teach people, just go slower than you think you need to. Go very slow. Once sex happens, bonding happens for many of us. So there are people who don't have that, and I don't know them, and I've tried not to go out with them. I'm interested in, committed relationships in my life, and I got it wrong many times. But going slow is how you can sort of get past the tendency to not see the red flags or to read too much into it or to take pessimism with you. What I hear here is I think you took some pessimism into this, like you wouldn't, your fear that he just wouldn't like you or be serious about you. I just didn't hear that coming from him until you sort of forced him to answer. And he sort of said, well, I can't be forced to say that right now. And that is appropriate for dating for 2 months. You're getting to know somebody. There's such a thing as people who make a commitment very quickly. They just know it's the right one. There is such a thing, but more often than not, especially with people who have CPTSD, rushing in is going to lead to heartbreak. So it's a slow build to get to know somebody. Go slowly. Don't bond with them yet. Don't even sleep together at first. Take your time with that. Get to know them and find out first how they feel about you. And if you really feel like you want to have that attachment to them, if you want to be into them that much, the way you're going to be if you sleep with somebody. So it already happened with this person, and there's a way that you can make an adjustment. But let's see what happened here. We didn't speak for a week, and then he wrote to me and asked if he could see me to talk and to give me back some shirts. So the day came, and I was ready for him to end things with me, but he told me he wanted to keep going out. I told him that I thought that wasn't a good idea, that I had noticed I was being selfish the last time. Selfish? This sounds very distorted, and it's totally okay with the childhood you had. I can just see how you just seem to be trying to guess what the emotional reality here is and trying to guess how you should be in relationship and what you should say. And I think you're punishing yourself for feeling like you expect too much from him. And he keeps surprising you, like he wasn't leaving you. He was just giving you some shirts. In fact, it sounds to me like he was trying to get an excuse to see you. And you said it wasn't a good idea to keep going out. And the last time we talked, you were trying to regulate your emotions and thoughts about us with his feedback, and that you didn't want to be selfish with him. I don't think that's what it is. You don't want to be rejected by him, is what it is. You don't want him, you're afraid he's being selfish. If I'm reading you correctly, you feel very out of control. You're trying to sort of grab a narrative that you think puts you in control, except the whole thing is dishonest. You love him. You want to keep going out with him. Here's the problem. And you're sabotaging yourself. But since it's the case that I do have insecurities and fears, I felt that every time I talk about something similar, he shuts down and goes silent. We can't go on. Okay, you're not going to like this, but you're being a bit manipulative here. You're being overly harsh with him. But I think what you're trying to say is, I have insecurities and fears, and I need to talk about these things more often than we did without having you shut down. But I'm wondering if you ever talked about it without sort of making threats and going, we're just friends with benefits. That's kind of a threat for somebody who actually is into you. So he asked me, you say, what he was missing. So he's wondering, like, why aren't you into me? And I said he wasn't missing anything. So he said that he didn't understand then why I thought why he didn't want to be with me, or why I thought he was going to leave. And at that moment, I couldn't say more than because I feel it. While thinking, you can't even say the contrary. See, but that's not fair. So you were feeling it. You had fear that you're going to get left. And, statistically, that can happen. That's not crazy, but I don't think that's what was happening. That's not where he was coming from. You're saying, but he wouldn't even say the contrary. So you were testing him to go, you don't even care about me. And then you're like, is he going to say, yes, I do? But he's just, I think it's entirely possible. He's just put off. He's hurt. He's like, what is this? Why are you treating me like this? I told him that I felt that if we kept going out of fear, he would stay the same and that I would fall even more. And then he, slightly irritated, said, okay, look, I don't want to force you to do anything, and I won't force myself to do it. I told him I didn't want to force him either, and then we parted. So what I'm hearing there, if I'm hearing you correctly, is you were trying to force him to make this assertion that he wants to be with you, and you were putting him on the spot. If you keep going, you're going to fall more and he won't be into it. And he's just noticing he can't really promise that he's going to fall in love with you. He's just dating you right now. What I want to teach you, Carla, is the difference between dating and being in a relationship. So you were dating a guy and it was going pretty well, but your heart was having a relationship. And how would you know that with your crappy parents and how they didn't take care of you? How would you even know? So you get to know now. You're with us now, and we can help you. I'm going to talk you through this. You were dating. You were not in a relationship. And it's understandable, especially because it was dating with sex, that it's like your mind and your heart and your body are like in a relationship. That's just how it works for some of us. It's more common in women than men. It's more common in traumatized people than non-traumatized people. So you've won the lottery. You're a bonder. You feel connected to somebody through sex. which is why I say if you go slow, you don't have that bond that ends up leaving you like, what even is this relationship? Oh gosh, now I love you. Now I'm connected to you. Now I'm going to like break down if it doesn't work out. And I know that's not right. So I'm ashamed and I have to hide how I feel. That's kind of how I interpret your actions here. So you said, not once he told me, I want to be with you. Not once he told me that he could consider a relationship with me without buts, or that he was willing to keep trying with me while recognizing my feelings and knowing that both of us are wounded in different ways and with different fears. I was willing to make the effort to accommodate, and I felt he wasn't willing even to try and understand me. So maybe this is a thing with him, that he's kind of avoidant, that he's uncomfortable with these emotional conversations. But a little bit I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because you're being overly harsh. You're being a little bit manipulative there, and I mean that in the nicest way, but you're trying to get him to say something by saying something mean. You don't love me. Yes, I do. Oh, he didn't say that. He must not. So you're trying to measure his worth and what his intentions are and how good he is by whether he passed this test that was way too much for a 2 months of dating relationship. Here's the thing about partners and relationships. It's not really their job to, it is their job to listen. It is their job to observe your boundaries. It is their job to be honest with you. But it's not their job to understand all the reasons why you feel the way you feel. I think you could do a lot better dating without putting this huge expectation that people have this deep parent-like understanding with you. Instead, you can use dating to get to know somebody and to let information come to you about, who are they? What are they? How do they feel about you? Let them tell you. You don't have to drag it out of them. It's interesting. I was just talking to a friend about this yesterday. You don't have to go questing to find out how they feel. You just have to sit back and observe. It helps a lot if you're not sleeping with the person. You can keep your expectations moderate and just notice, like, how do they act towards me? How often do they call? Do they follow through? If they say they're going to call this weekend, do they? And you can start to observe and notice, how do I feel when I'm waiting for them to call? How do I feel when I'm around them? These are your cues that it might be worth going a little next step with them. So that's dating. That's dating. You said, I know he doesn't feel the same way I do, since he told me I can't force myself to feel more for you. And again, I think that makes sense. It's 2 months in. But still, I can't be satisfied with my decision, Carla says. I miss him, and I can't shake the fact that he wanted to keep seeing me and that there was still a lot of care and affection. So this reminds me on some levels of letters I get from people who have been dating somebody who tells them flat out, I don't want a relationship. This is just friends with benefits. They shock them with this news that that's how they see them. Oh no, this is never going anywhere. And then the letter writers write to me and say, oh, but I can't stop thinking about them. I just think somehow if I were different. It's one thing if they said they weren't interested, but this guy kept saying he was interested. He just wasn't like all the way in a relationship with you yet. So in your case, Clara, I think there might be some unfinished business here. I think you may have left too early, and this is not just a simple matter of correcting the record. I think it's time for you to be working on yourself with a therapist, or in my program, or a 12-step program, but something where you're getting help to process your emotions and get a reality check, so you're not coming in hot when you're scared, when you're worried you're going to get abandoned, because you have an abandonment wound. Abandonment wounds are hard to deal with. And what's a really good thing to do is to deal with it in your own time. And then when you're in the early stages of dating somebody, you're not hitting them with this, you're abandoning me, you can't do this, you're mistreating me because I feel this. I think even when people treat us well, the abandonment wound will put us into pain. It's just going to happen. So we got to do a lot of healing to have a successful dating relationship. And if this guy is wonderful, as you say, and the connection you feel, who knows, maybe this can be salvaged. But one thing would be good to be able to tell him and say, I'm sorry that I jumped the gun. I actually really liked you. I wanted this to work out. I couldn't stop thinking about you. I've decided to get help and start working on my emotions, because I know that when I went into fear, I just started pushing you away. Another word for this, Carla, is disorganized attachment, where you're really into somebody, but when they're right there, you push them away. Disorganized attachment. It's a very difficult attachment wound to have. It's a style. And it takes a lot of work, like really steady work, to learn to come to the center, not to either rush in with them and not to push them away almost arbitrarily. It will seem arbitrary to them, but not to you. So before we talked, he hugged me and everything was well. His affection always felt sincere, and it hurts to know that maybe if I didn't have my insecurities, maybe if I didn't have a bad history of relationships, I would be content with going out, even if he doesn't call it a relationship, even if he doesn't talk about an us. So yeah, not at 2 months. It's okay. It's okay that he's not doing you wrong there. 2 months. These days, I've been thinking that maybe I should have stayed as long as I get to keep his embrace, which feels like home. I don't have anywhere else. I'm really hurting with my decision, even though I know it was for the best, because I know that if I stayed, things probably would have changed, since he has fear of commitment, and I can't be calm as long as he tells me something he can't say. Something along the words, I want to be with you. I would like to build up from this connection with you. All right, Carla, I'm just going to put in front of you. How about 6 months? If you can date somebody, maybe that's, 3 to 6 months that you date somebody without sleeping with them, and then without pressuring them, you just wait to see what they say they feel for you, and just see if you hear those words. Not with you chasing after them and threatening them. That's a bad way to get that love expressed. All of this feels like a punch in the gut. I feel like I gave him a lot and that he took it with no fear, no disgust, no rejection, and more. And he gave back to me tenderly and passionately. It hurts me that he cannot be direct with his refusal to be in a relationship with me. I think he has been direct. I didn't hear the whole conversation, but he just said, I can't do that yet. And I can't promise that's where it's going. And that is the nature of dating. We date to find out if that's where it's going. Everything feels like interpretations, insinuations, since he wanted to keep seeing me. It felt mutual, and with him by my side, everything felt nice, but I couldn't shake the idea that I was sure I wanted to be with him and that he simply didn't know. It's okay. That's normal. It's normal to know when the other person doesn't know yet. That it felt like he was testing the ground and that my fears were an inconvenience to him. Yeah, because this is the harsh truth. Having CPTSD and having the amount of fear that we have, especially when we're not healed yet, and I think you got some healing to do, it isn't very pleasant to be on the receiving end of that. It's hard because no matter what people say, they can't really fix it for us. Isn't that surprising? No matter what they say, it doesn't, they can't reassure you. It's not realistic for somebody at 2 months to go, I absolutely know you're the one. It has happened to some people. That doesn't mean it's stuck. The slow and steady route is the healthy one. You said you felt like you were in a relationship, but since you couldn't talk about it, it cannot be called that. So no, it's really normal and correct not to call it a relationship yet. This is the first time that I leave a situationship without depleting it. Interesting. Normally I leave when there is nothing left, and I feel like that's what's more troubling. We still care for each other, and both of us wanted to keep going, but with different terms. And I guess it is better this way, so we don't hold more resentment later. But I feel really sad. I've been working on myself after every bad experience, trying to see my mistakes and working on them and on being better and being well while alone, enjoying my company and that of others. But it hurts so much to lose someone over my insecurities and conceptions of love. Yeah. I know I don't ask for something wacky. I just want him to acknowledge we were a relationship and maybe hopefully that he would have enough hope in it to keep building it with me. But even though I know that what I want is valid, I'm still left feeling like I'm too intense. And we spent 3 months together and I didn't want to force anything on him. I held back from expressing too much to not make him feel uncomfortable. No, I think you did make him feel uncomfortable. I just want to give you, this is what I hear. Not because you're bad, but just because, you're just you. You have your feelings. And he was uncomfortable. He couldn't go there that fast. But still, I feel like a problem, like I'll always end up alone for being too much, like I'll always feel more than the other person. And this time I chose to stay back to protect myself, but I keep feeling like it wasn't the right choice. All right. So, Clara, this is what I think. I think this one might be a keeper, and it might be worth apologizing to him while you work on yourself. And if he is willing to talk to you or see you and isn't yet in a new relationship, then maybe you guys can have a chat and see where it goes. And just see if you agree with me that maybe you jumped the gun on trying to force him to acknowledge it as a relationship when it was still so new, that you could apologize and reset. Just do a reset and say, it's okay if we date. And this time, what you can do differently is not sleep with him. It's going to be very difficult for somebody with your level of attachment wound to pace a relationship when sex is going on. It's sort of like, what is it? The calf is out of the barn. Well, all the feelings are going anyway. So you've been apart for a while. You have a chance to slow it down now and see where it is and allow communication to be how this relationship comes together. Now, if he doesn't want to slowly get to know you, maybe there isn't anything there. You can play it by ear. But just consider 3 to 6 months to be a more reasonable window to date somebody actually reserving your heart. And when you do talk about your feelings, tell the real ones. Now, feelings can be too much. It's true. When we have CPTSD, we can overwhelm people. There's a lot of pain from the past kind of leaking into whatever's hurting us in present time. And people are like, whoa, I don't even know what you're talking about. It doesn't make sense to me that you're feeling this strongly about it. So that's why we come off as too much. You won't always be too much if you work on your healing. A chaotic and neglectful family life can deprive a child of forming an identity. Not just who they are, but what they like and what they want to pursue in their lives. And in adulthood, if this is you, you may try to fill this empty space with relationships, or rather the idea of a relationship to give you direction and a sense that your life matters and that you're real. My letter today is from a woman I'll call B, and she writes, "Hello, Anna." It's in really big letters. "Hello, Anna. I grew up in a home with a mother with untreated borderline personality disorder and depression. That's a lot. A brother with severe Tourette's, learning disabilities, and anger management issues. Oh, that's really a lot. And a father who worked as a long-haul truck driver who was gone most of the time working." Okay, I hear trouble coming. Here we go. I've got the fairy pencil. I'm going to circle things that I want to come back to in B's story, but let's see what's going on. It was a single-parent household with a dad I didn't really know popping in for a weekend once a month or so. My mother and brother would have very loud verbal fights almost constantly, and there was occasional violence. My mother loved me very much and became codependent with me and spoke of me like I was a golden child. But due to the additional needs of my brother and my mother's own mental health struggles, I often ended up feeling neglected and alone. I wasn't really allowed to fight back against my brother either and was told I had to love and forgive him no matter what he said or did to me. I also was held to a much different standard than my brother. Yeah, because he had all those disabilities. As he had to really act out bad to be punished. But if I stepped a toe out of line, I would get blown up at because I was the well-behaved child. So I learned very early not to rock the boat. Oh yeah, that's not fair, but there it is. Due to this, I am a people pleaser and I have a very anxious attachment style. I also tend to idolize people, excuse and dismiss their faults, and I have a lot of identity issues. Okay, well those could be kind of serious. I'm from Canada, and when I was 20, I moved to another country to be with a man I'd met online and had fallen for. I loved my life in that country, almost 5 years there, but then the relationship inevitably crumbled. When it did, I had to return to Canada with only 28 days' notice. Leaving the life I had built with such short notice crushed me. And to make matters worse, I came back to find my mother had sunken into a severe depression and was all but unreachable. And my father had lost his job and had become a massive hoarder, filling up my childhood home with clutter and trash. And that was the only place I could stay. I blamed myself for leaving my parents to their downfall. I'd abandoned them and they floundered without me. Well, I think you're writing this because you know that's not true. You're not responsible. It was okay that you went to pursue your life and have a life. Okay. It was like my entire world was destroyed and I was standing in the ruins of it with the detonator still in my hands. No. I hope you don't think that, but okay, we'll come back to that. I began trying to run away from my life, traveling regularly with unhealthy people because they could facilitate the travel for me. So I put up with their abuse to get what I wanted, anything to get away from my life at the time. On one of the trips, I met a man from Texas. I fell head over heels for him. I was convinced pretty quickly that this man would whisk me away to Texas and give me the life I really wanted, away from the traumas of home. He told me up front that he was damaged, having had a toxic childhood of his own and a string of failed relationships, that he didn't want a relationship. He said that up front, did he? Okay. He had previously been addicted to hard drugs and had tendencies of thinking about ending things for himself and a general apathy toward living. I saw his honesty about his mental health struggles as endearing and self-aware. Oh dear. Oh dear. Yep. Instead of the massive red flag I now see it was. More than a flag, really. It's a brick wall. Yeah, that was a no-go zone. That was a nuclear waste site. I thought he had a handle on them. We continued to chat, and within weeks we were dating, and I was flying to Texas once or twice a month to see him, and we were texting and calling every day. I thought things were perfect. You did? And that I'd moved down there to be with him soon enough. 6 months into the relationship, we planned a trip of multiple cities across America. It was to take around 2 weeks. On the second day, he got mad at me while at a very public event and broke up with me on the spot. The issue was we still had the whole holiday to complete. This is where I'm having trouble understanding you. No, you didn't. He broke up with you. To survive it, I basically deleted the breakup from my brain, and we actually completed the holiday while still holding hands, snuggling in bed, and being intimate. All the while, I knew I'd been dumped. It was excruciating, but I didn't know what else to do. So, my dear, that sounds like dissociation. It sounds like the ultimate crap fit there. The ultimate cool girl. Oh, you dumped me? That's okay. We'll just carry on like nothing happened. But it's telling to me, I'm just going to go ahead and comment on this letter without waiting till I get through the end, that you didn't know what to do. You didn't know what to do. And this is where your childhood comes into play, where you weren't cared for or taught or given that emotional intelligence to be like, what you do when somebody dumps you is you go and either have your own vacation or you go home, but you don't stay with them. Once somebody has dumped you, it's like poison. It's like sitting in boiling water. You don't want to be there, not only because it's miserable, but because it leads to the crazies. It just does. If you want to lose your mind, just stick around in a relationship where somebody has just already broken up with you. So you didn't know. And so I hear you. You didn't know, but that's what you do. Now you know. 2 months after returning to Canada, the pandemic hit, and suddenly he popped back up on my phone again. Did he now? Why am I not surprised? All right. We became quarantine buddies, talking on the phone and watching movies together for upward of 5 hours almost every day. All right, I got sarcastic about him there. He seems like somebody who, just wants to take what he wants and he doesn't want to have to be obliged to at all, which made me mad. But then again, what you did when you acted like cool girl about the breakup and just stayed and had a holiday with him is you told him it was okay. You told him with your actions that you were flexible about his coming and going with his intentions for you. So you were 5 hours a day watching movies. It was remote, I guess, on Zoom, blowing kisses, calling me babe, chatting and texting constantly. Yeah, that would lead you to a certain impression. All the while still broken up, though. I thought that maybe he was changing his mind. I could see why you thought that, but he didn't say it, did he? Because at the time of the breakup and multiple times after, he would say that he didn't know what the future held regarding us ever getting back together. All right. I want to just step in and be your mentor for a second here and be like, I know your trauma would lead you to say that if somebody says, I don't really know if I want to be with you, you have this amazing capacity to hold out the possibility of the best possible outcome, that they will come around, because that's what you had to do your entire childhood. I believe in you. I will not complain. I'll just be nice and walk on eggshells and make everybody happy. I won't get in trouble. I'll be nice to my abusive brother. I won't complain about my dad's absence. But now you're a grown-up and it has to end, because this is what happens. This is what happens when you accommodate other people's terrible behavior. I mean, your brother couldn't help it. Your family really couldn't help it either. I mean, hardly anybody can help themselves when it comes to trauma in the family. But you were not raised well. You were not cared for properly. And so now you're the grown-up who has to step in and care for yourself properly. and not let people treat you like this and not stick around for it and not watch movies together and hang out for months, not asking where the person is coming from and not holding on to hope that they said, I don't know where this is going, but that means maybe it's good. If somebody doesn't know, they're not good for dating. They're just not good. I'm going to suggest, I tell everybody this, if you tend to go for unavailable people, which is what's happening, it's time for you to write a list of qualities that you must have. And one of them is they love you. They're so excited to be with you. Only date people who are excited to date you. They may not love you yet, but time appropriate. It's got to be that. You can't be dating people who are like, I don't know. I couldn't say what the future is, but why don't you spend the night? Even if there was hope that they were going to come around, that will tend to kill it. That will tend to sort of ruin that possibility. Because it's a crap fit thing to do, because it communicates that you're not partner material. It's not strategic, but not that I'm saying be strategic, but it communicates something that doesn't cause people to fall in love and to, fight for you a little bit. So you've made it very easy to be indifferent to you. So this is the day all of that can change. This guy, okay, I hope you just stop having contact with him. The level of problem that he has in his life is egregious and not appropriate for dating, no matter how he felt about you. And he needs to be working on his life. And we're not doing a service for people who are fragile by being in messed up relationships with them. If you've been married to somebody for 10 years and then they have an addiction and a depression, yes, stand by them, go get therapy together. But this is just like a dating thing. Don't get involved with people who, can't even decide if they want to be alive. That is not a good plan for you. I can hear it. I can hear you don't know who to be. You don't know who to be without this guy. One day, about a year and a half into this stage of the relationship, and after 2 additional flights to see him, I got the courage to ask about his feelings toward me, and he again said he didn't know what the future held. Then he began to pull away. It was a slow process, and he never disappeared completely. He never explained why, and I was too afraid to ask. And each time he pulled away further, I became more desperate to pull him closer. That's your trauma wound. When somebody pulls away, we become desperate to pull them in closer, which is a non-logical response to somebody pulling away. The anxiety became overwhelming. I became obsessed. What little conversation we did have began to turn into therapy sessions where we would talk about his depression and not a lot else. But of course you're not his therapist, so it's really just you crap fitting, abandoning yourself to see if you can get love out of a depressed person, which when I say it, I hope it sounds a little bit odd, because it is. But I've done it. I totally have done it. I know, but I understand because I've been through it, and I also understand how it's not right because I've been through it. And hopefully when you hear that I did it, you can hear, like, that's not right. You wouldn't want that for me either, would you? All the while, I felt I had to walk on eggshells around him, though, for fear of doing something that would make him cut off contact for good. That's a terrible high wire to be on a person who doesn't want to be with you, maybe doesn't want to be alive, and then fearing they're going to cut off contact and somehow you have to make everything okay. That's really hard. And it's remote, and they don't really want you. During this time, there were 3 additional trips, 2 me going to him and 1 him coming to me, one of which I helped him walk through a mental breakdown where he was talking of ending his life. Seeing that was a genuinely traumatic experience. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Not a great idea for you at all, and not a great idea for him. If he's in that situation, he needs to be with a professional. During each trip, it was like we were a couple again, and for about a week or so after each visit, he would be super attentive, like he was at the beginning, but then he'd begin to pull away again, and thus I felt I had to keep going to get it fired back up, even though I knew it wouldn't last, and that each trip he had less energy and a more depressed mood. So I don't know if you can hear this, but isn't that just like somebody who is using a drug? And like a little bit, if I just keep chasing the drug, I can get the high again, and then it goes away again, and then I get the drug again. So that's what happens with intermittent reinforcement, somebody who likes you and then pulls away and likes you and pulls away. And even without the trauma that you lived through, even like rats and mice will become, obsessed with something that's intermittently reinforced with them. It's just like a brain trick on mammals. And the only way to break it is to break it, to get out and stop. But here's your dilemma. I fear me pulling away from him completely may lead him to self-harm or worse. As he's said repeatedly, he doesn't have anyone in his life to support him. I feel like that burden is on my shoulders. He uses his depression as an excuse for why he has pulled away. But he did once admit to me months later that he pulled away because he wanted to quell my feelings for him and that it was good for me, even though I told him it hurt me. I identified that as gaslighting, you say, and started to see the cracks in the relationship for the first time. I want to call you on that. He's not gaslighting you. He's telling the truth. He's pulling away because he doesn't really want to be with you. And one of the reasons is he doesn't want to, he wants to quell your feelings. He at least has a heart enough to be like, he doesn't want to drag you through this with him. He doesn't want you there. I think it's natural to be really afraid when people are talking like this, to be afraid they're going to harm themselves. I've been in that situation. One time they did, one time they didn't. I hated it. I never want to be in that again. And I got some help from a very famous trauma therapist, actually, when I first started Crappy Childhood Fairy. People write to me sometimes and say they want to end their lives. And I used to spend every evening writing these long letters, pleading with them, don't do it, don't do it. And I asked this master therapist, who's very well known, how should I handle this? And they said, look, you're not even a therapist. This is what you say. You say, this is very serious. Do you know who to call right now? I want you to call right now. Call your therapist, call a hotline, get help immediately. This is so important that you do that. And I wish you the best. Please go do that. And then you pull away. That's what you do. And what I was reassured is, of course we feel responsible, like, can we keep them alive by sticking around? But you're not a therapist, and not only that, but you're kind of like strung out on this guy. You're trying to get love out of him. You're trying to massage the situation so that it turns out your way. And all of that is putting tremendous pressure on a fragile person. Sometimes it's without all these props and people hanging around and tangled, messed up relationships that we can most see clearly what we need to do. I know that's what needed to happen for me to finally recover, because I was really kind of depending on a lot of people. And when they pulled away, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. He's going to do whatever he's going to do. I encourage you not to have him in your life anymore. You don't even need to be concerned with what happens. You didn't cause this problem. You can't control it, and you can't cure it. That's a saying I learned in 12-step recovery, and it's a good thing that applies right now. You are the one who needs to be healing right now. And right now, through this dynamic of your trauma and sort of a people-pleasing and codependent urge to try to save the little bit of love that you feel like is available to you in this world, you're depriving yourself of having real friends and love. Sitting on Zoom, talking to some guy who's like, I don't know. You are worth so much more than that. So I really want to encourage you to consider going to 12-step meetings wherever you live. They have them. You can do them online. You can do them in person. In person is good. You qualify for Friends and Families of Alcoholics, Al-Anon. That would be good because of this relationship. ACA, Dysfunctional Families, that one would be good. CODA, Codependence Anonymous, that one would be good. I don't know if you have any substance stuff, but there's programs for that too. And it's so wonderful because you can begin to get honest with real people who understand about what's going on and hear them and support them and possibly make some friends while you're there and find a sponsor and get real help and start walking yourself be out of this mess, out of this lonely, sad mess you've got yourself in. It's really normal. It's not your fault that you have this wound from trauma, the way that you were raised. You got injured, but you can start walking the path of healing. I really encourage you to do that. You can also use the tools that I offer. I have a free course. I have courses you can buy. I have a membership. We have this incredible community in the membership with people who support each other with very similar things that they're healing too. What tremendous progress we can make when we have proper tools and some friends who get it. So I wish that for you. It's a terrible thing when parents ignore and neglect a child for whom attention, love, and security are just as important as food and water and oxygen. If you grew up starved for comfort, you may find yourself now, as an adult, trying to make do in relationships where you get almost nothing back. And the hardest part is, you can't let go. My letter today is from a woman I'll call Lena, and she writes, Hello, Anna. I'm 46 years old, and for most of my life, I've been single. 5 years ago, I fell in love. All right, I've got my fairy pencil here, and I'm going to circle things I want to come back to on a second reading, but let's see what's going on in Lena's life. She says she fell in love at first sight. We experienced an intense love. We're deeply spiritually connected, and after 4 years, he left me. For me, it was someone I would have loved being with all my entire life. Today, 11 months later, I'm still grieving, and I can feel the heartbreak as if it happened yesterday. I still feel physical pain, not only mental pain and heart pain. I have no kids, and I was never married, though I wanted and want to. When people ask me why, the question is offending me a little bit because it makes me feel as if there's something wrong with me. I always say that I just didn't meet the right man. The paradox is, love is what I wish for. It is the most important desire for me, giving someone love and receiving it, being in love and experiencing love and a loving partnership. Because I ask myself over and over why my ex of 4 years left me, he just left one day, sending a text message, not explaining why. I dove deep into psychology and read many books, mostly to understand myself and what I might have contributed to him leaving, so that I never need to go through such a tough experience again. I wanted to see what I can't see yet and work on myself. I believe I'm emotionally unstable in a way that I have jealousy issues. I never showed it. I would just withdraw and spend a lot of time alone. And I seem to be very anxious in cities and around many people. I'm also highly sensitive, which makes me withdraw even more because I tend to get tired easily, as too many stimuli overwhelm me. I think my ex must have felt neglected or as if I haven't given back enough, but that is just an assumption. My parents are still married, and I only discovered in the past 5 years that my mom is emotionally unstable to this day. She's extremely moody, and her choice of words are hurtful. She always reacts, never responds. I think the question, "How are you feeling?" I never received. My dad was away in the Army for the first 4 years of my life, and both parents worked a lot. My mom was always there, but emotionally unavailable. She always hates activities or nature, and so we never did or do things together. When I think of her, I always see her back turned toward me. Eyes that never really look at me but have something else in mind, and eyes that wander around. Usually she says, "I'm busy," or "I have to cook now," or "I need to go to the toilet." I never get angry with anyone. I don't fight. I don't get into arguments. But with her, I get very angry, and sometimes we scream at each other and shut doors. I feel so bad inside when that happens because it only happens around her, and I noticed I go down on her level when I'm around her now. As a child, I would just go alone, be alone and lonely. I always felt lonely. My dad did many activities with me, taught me skiing, swimming, and collecting mushrooms, all about birds and how to make things. I grew up in the east part of Germany before the wall fell, and it was a hard and ugly life. I remember how unhappy I was at school and how unseen and unheard and unloved I felt. There it is. Actually, it turns out that I became the opposite of my mom because I always wanted to be the exact opposite to her. I'm caring, loving, and kind. I'm soft-spoken and creative and timid and often afraid to be brave. In my last relationship, I noticed that my ex would also withdraw and sometimes not call me for weeks or not invite me to a birthday party of his friends. In the relationship, I acted the same way when I was a child. I simply withdrew and switched my phone off and then traveled alone for 1 or 2 weeks to the ocean. Because the ocean is my lifesaver. My ex said one time, "I feel ghosted by you." That's a paradox to me, as I felt he excluded me from his life, and then I feel not seen and feel more anxious somehow. I want to stop here and hope I've given enough background information for you to respond to me and to be able to give tips. I don't want to ever react to my mom anymore, and I need to leave that anger behind. She's 76 and will and doesn't want to change. I need and want to rise above all this and firstly not react toward her anymore because it slows me down. The recovery time takes me weeks after a hurtful argument. And mostly I want to bring into my life a romantic partner, experience the fullness of love and partnership and be stable enough so I can create a commitment for life out of that. I want to show up as the best version of myself that I can be. someone that is not jealous, not afraid, not anxious, someone with self-esteem and pride, healthy pride, and someone that can communicate right away what I need when feeling, again, that I want to withdraw or when I get jealous, so that the other person knows what is going on and that I have, therefore, a good chance of navigating a relationship, as opposed to leaving the room, going on a holiday, or withdrawing. My biggest fear was always that breakup, and my biggest fear became a reality. I still wish for a kid. I still wish to get married, but maybe these things don't matter as much as finding and giving love. Since I'm highly sensitive, I'm not on dating apps. I have some bad experiences with it. I'm living in the countryside, in nature. I work only online, and I have no social network around me. Okay. I travel the world, so I made great friendships, but I decided 6 years ago to come back home. And so I have no friends here. During my 4-year relationship, I focused only on us. Actually, the reason was that I love being alone and by myself, and I choose every opportunity to be alone. Well, also because I'm highly sensitive, I spent most of my free time in nature and doing sports or yoga alone, but that works against me now, as I have no starting point in getting to know people. I hope that this shows you something about me, because I can be unorganized and fall into a freeze state when I need to decide what to do during the day. The relationship was complex, and life is complex, and people are complex, so I'm not even sure whether I picked the right information for you to see something valuable to share with me. I hope you do. Many thanks, Anna. I appreciate your channel and the work you do. Okay, Lena, what a beautiful letter. What a beautiful letter. I sense you are just so on the cusp of finding what you want. And it's interesting because you felt you were sort of pulling together some pieces of trying to make a little patchwork, a mosaic of who you are and what's going on here. And I think you did a marvelous job. I do get a feeling for you. 46 years old, 4-year relationship that was super deep, and then he just left. All right, Lena, so I guess my big takeaway from your letter is that you might be idealizing this man in this relationship, and that how that was happening. I don't think you're crazy or anything. You know, I see your trauma wounds. I see that you're very avoidant right now. This whole thing of living in nature and not dealing with people in order to manage your triggers is so normal for someone with complex PTSD. And what you described from your childhood sounds like, yeah, that would do it. That vacantness of your mother, that lack of attention to who you are. I'm glad your father, when he was in your life, was very loving and showed you things about nature and gave you a love of that. So you had some good things, but your mother, it just seems like you're still very much trapped in this vortex of trying to heal that relationship. And of course, when we have a traumatizing parent, it's not always going to work out the way it does on TV. And for people who didn't have trauma, where you have a conversation with them and they have introspection and they come through and talk to you about what happened and change their behavior, like, probably your mom sounds a little like mine, and it didn't come for me, and I healed anyway, and you can too. You can too. It's you got robbed. You didn't get what any little girl should have, but you got enough to be who you are today, which is extraordinary and lovely. And you can work with this. You can work with who you are. So, and wanting to find love and possibly have a kid, I'm behind you all the way. All right. These are good goals, and I want you to have it. And I think you're capable of it. But it's this thing where you're avoiding life because it's too stimulating for you that's probably working against you. And I have a feeling that this relationship probably had red flags all over it. People don't just ghost you after 4 years for no reason without dropping some kind of clue that they're unavailable or not accepting you. Like something was there that you maybe weren't able to process. I wasn't there, I don't know, but I'm going to ask you to think about that. Something was there. He certainly wasn't making a commitment and saying, I would like to settle down with you. I want to be with you forever. He didn't do those things. He didn't get married. He didn't have a child with you. So you had this information coming in, and some part of you, which is like such a traumatized kid thing to do, some part of you was like, that's okay. I'll take this half version of what I want. I won't say anything about it. And if I feel jealous or rejected, this thing where he celebrated his birthday with friends and you weren't invited, there's your red flag. That's not good. That's not loving, kind behavior. And this part of you that says it was the most spiritual love, I just wonder sometimes if we don't spiritualize love because the material plane of love, of like celebrating birthdays together, is not there. So we're like, but it's very spiritual. It's a connection on another level. That is what we call crap fit at Crappy Childhood Fairy. We fit ourselves to unacceptable people and situations because we're just so very good at it from childhood. And you had to do that as a kid. I mean, your dad wasn't even there the first 4 years. So you had this mom not looking at you. I totally relate to that. I understand. When you described what you would be like as your best self, expressing yourself, not just running away when the going gets tough. So if you had expressed yourself in the first 6 months even, if he was the sort of person who can't take it or doesn't accept you as you are, which you must have feared, well, then good that he would have gotten out of the way before consuming 4 years of your life only to ghost you and leave you with this giant unanswered question. When we can get these questions answered early, it's so much better, and we get to live our life and, make new relationships and learn things about ourselves, but we get to have communication. Everybody has a right to have communication, and it's very abusive to leave without explaining to somebody why, and I'm really sorry that happened to you. So good riddance to him. I hope you can stop idealizing him as this perfect love. It wasn't good love. It wasn't good at all. It was somebody who would do that to you. That's not love. It might be what your mom would have done to you, but it's not love. And so somebody who loves you, even if they don't want to be with you, if they care about you, they help you have enough information to process what happened. They care about how you're going to deal with it later. They think about such things, and they go to an extra effort to do their best with it. So I get you're sensitive. It sounds like you're a bit introverted maybe. And but this thing where you live in the country, it kind of parallels the pandemic, right? Your exodus from civilization. But you had this relationship. And I think it's so important for those of us who struggle in relationships and with trauma wounds, we can really do ourselves a disservice when we use a relationship as our everything. There, now I don't have to deal with the world. I'll just hang out with you. I'll put all my eggs in this basket. And then this birthday thing happens and you have to go to the ocean alone to cope and feel sad. No. If you have friends, and you have friends, you said you had friends all over the world from traveling, I really encourage you to come back to your friends and get ready to make new ones, to start connecting with people. Now, people who are rusty, who are not connecting very easily with others, often need to approach it slowly. You might want to take a look at my Connection Bootcamp. It's a course, it's a 30-day program where you take a little step each day toward reconnecting with people. You can get that down in the description section. Don't forget, it's got a little more thing where you open it up to open up the full set of links that are available to you under all my videos. But it only shows you the first 2 or 3 lines. You have to click that little more thing that opens it and see what's there. Connection Bootcamp. You can also find that and all my courses on my website at crappychildhoodfairy.com. But a lot of people who had trauma, because people are so triggering, even if it's not really our core nature to want to be alone, we've been avoiding people as a way to manage our triggers so that we don't get so dysregulated we can't function. It's a natural and kind of somewhat self-protective thing to do, but in the end, it ends up like where you are right now. So now's your time. Now you get to come back out. You could also look at the dating course where you can get very clear about what you want so that you don't go into a relationship with this vague assumption that love is coming, commitment is coming, and feel like you can't ask, that you can't make that a criteria for continuing a relationship with somebody quite early on. If they're not open to, what you want in your life, they're not a good person for you to date. And you can have these questions out on the table very early on, but you first have to start with getting clear with yourself.